Hey guys, it's Casey. I'm going to make a video tonight and it's going to be about people calling CPS. It's going to be specifically about people calling CPS just to be vindictive. I'm going to relate to some of the stuff I've dealt with when people have called CPS on me just to be vindictive. And I'm also going to relate on domestic violence situations when somebody does decide to leave their abuser and then people decide to call CPS on them. Honestly, I have been away from my abuser. It was 7 years at the beginning of this month. And I cannot keep track of how many times I had CPS called on me. I never had CPS called on me before, so it led me to kind of come to the conclusion that I had a feeling that it was my abuser and his family calling CPS on me. And a lot of the times people will call CPS on people and they do it just to be vindictive. I've heard of people that have called CPS on people and gotten people's kids taken away just because they didn't like the female and the female was dating their ex or something along those lines. And the thing is, I don't think people really stop and rationalize how traumatic that can be. Especially for the parent that's just getting out of that situation, or especially for the kids that, have been used to a certain situation all their lives, and then they move into this new situation, and in some cases they may have lost the parent in that situation. The parent might have decided to walk away, or the parent might be in jail, and then the children have to sit here and they have to deal with CPS coming in, and most kids already know the stories that they've heard of CPS. CPS will come in and they'll take you from your mom, your dad, or whoever you're with. Guys, it's not right. It's not right at all. I mean, if you have issues with somebody, then that's fine. You have issues with them. Everybody has issues with somebody. But when you are calling CPS on people just to be vindictive, and just because you're mad at that person, I don't think anybody quite realizes the damage that it can have. They can sit there and call and call and call and call, to the point that CPS, might decide to take the kids away because of people getting called all the time, on them. And, then those kids go to foster care, and then, if it's a group of, a big family that has several kids, those kids aren't all going to go to the same foster home. And not all foster homes are bad. I've had people that I know that are foster parents that they're amazing. I've heard horror stories of people that are foster parents, and it's a living nightmare what that child goes through, because most of the time that foster parent just sees that child as money. I actually knew a girl who, she had her ex-boyfriend's girlfriend called CPS and got her kids taken away. These kids were happy, these kids were healthy, they had a great life. The father, unfortunately, was a drug addict and decided his drug addiction was more important than being a dad. And he only wanted to try and be a dad when he felt like it was going to benefit him. And the mom in this situation, to keep her kids safe, she had told him, you can see the kids, that's fine, but don't come around and don't try and see the kids, when you're strung out on drugs, because I'm not going to put our kids in that situation. So these kids ended up getting put in foster care from a loving mom who worked her butt off and raised 4 of them on her own for about a year and a half at this point is when I think this had happened. And so the dad's girlfriend called CPS on her. And so these 4 kids got put in foster care. It was 2 of the brothers got put in a separate foster home, and then a brother and a sister, they got put in a separate foster home from the other siblings. And when those kids were in foster care, they actually ended up getting sexually abused by the foster parents. And when the mom of these kids had noticed that at visitation her kids were acting kind of strange and stuff, and then, just out of the blue, her son, said, hey, Daddy, whatever his name was, he touches my butt and he hurts my butt, at nighttime. And so she went and, she reported it to the caseworker. I don't really know how all that goes down, but she reported, hey, this had happened and all this stuff. So those people ended up losing, of course, their license, and I don't know if they ever faced charges or not. But here these kids went from being in a happy, healthy, loving home to getting sexually abused. And sexual abuse can cause a lot of long-term mental problems for people. And the whole reason this has started was all because the dad of those kids, his girlfriend, was being vindictive, and because she didn't like the fact that the dad was wanting to see the kids, and the mom had said, for my kids' safety, you're not going to come around our kids, unless you're clean, you're not doing drugs. Because you don't know how somebody's going to react on drugs, or maybe you do know how somebody's going to react on drugs, and you don't feel like kids are safe in that situation. I have dealt with, in 5 years' times when I was raising my kids, I had CPS called on me so much. I had CPS called on me so much to the point that when they would knock on the door, I literally would answer and say, "What I do now?" And that really traumatized my kids. I had two of my kids that would freak out and they would cry and they'd be like, "Mom, we don't want to lose you. Mom, we don't want to go stay with someone else." And I had to try and calm my kids and explain to my children, hey, I don't know the situation. I don't know what's going to happen. I love you. I'm here for you. And that caused a lot of long-term, effects on my kids. My kids got to the point where anytime I would walk out the house, my kids would walk right beside me. If I'd go outside to go smoke a cigarette, my kids were right there beside me. And even, going to work and stuff, my kids would be like, "Mom, where are you going?" "I'm going to work." "What time are you going to be back?" And, they were so terrified of CPS coming in and taking them, and it caused a lot of long-term effects of it, and I know for a fact that it had to have to do with my abuser and his family calling CPS on me, because like I said, when I was with my abuser, I never had CPS knocking on my door. I never had a CPS case. And then all of a sudden, they were at my door every single week, saying, "Oh, well, you did this, you did that," and all this stuff. And it was draining on me. It was very stressed out. I was sitting there trying to come to terms with my trauma that I had gone through, trying to be strong for the kids, trying to, be the happy mom that's got it all together. But then I had to lay at home or lay in my bed at night, terrified with thoughts racing, what's going to happen, are they going to take my kids, are kids going to end up going in foster care, is my abuser going to get the kids? And I never kept my abuser from seeing the kids. I've told a lot of people this. The only time I would ever stop my kids from being around anybody is if I feel like that they are endangered. And I'm sorry, as a parent, that is what you're supposed to do. If you feel like your child is in danger, then it is your job to protect your kid as best as you can. And I had went and filed a PFA on my abuser. And I had told the judge, there when we went to go get mine, I said, "Look," I said, "if he gets help for his mental health problems, I have no problem letting him see the kids. As of right now, I want it to be supervised because I knew how my abuser was. I knew my abuser could get upset. I knew my abuser had a temper. And there was times my abuser would actually go after, my oldest child, my son." And my abuser actually had called me, violating the PFA, and was like, "I'm not going to go get anger management. I'm not going to go on my medication. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that." And I was like, "Well, then I don't know what to tell you because I'm not going to allow the kids to be around you because I don't feel like they're going to be safe, especially when you get upset because I know how you act." I had CPS at my door like 2 days later. And they were coming up with off-the-wall stories that, I couldn't even wrap my head around some of them. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, obviously my abuser doesn't care about the kids enough to, get the help he needs. If somebody told me, you have to do this, this, and this, and this, and this to see your kids and come hell or high water, I'm going to do it so I can see my kids and be a part of my kids' life. And then I had people that I would hear them say stuff, "Oh, well, I don't like so-and-so, so I'm going to call CPS on her." And I was like, "Okay, do you have any proof the children are being abused or neglected or anything?" "No, I just don't like them." Okay, that's a shitty person. Pardon my French, but that is a shitty person. Just because you have issues with somebody that is an adult, instead of being civilized and either approaching the situation like an adult to see if you can, resolve the situation, or, just ignore the situation. If you don't like the person, then you have no reason to even try to be around them. Why would you want to put innocent children through that kind of stress. Why would you want to punish innocent children just because you're mad at their parent because, you don't like their parent because their parent talked to you a certain way, or you don't like their parent because they're dating your ex, or you don't like their parent because, you're with the father of that parent or that mother of that parent, and the other parent has told that parent, unless I know you're not using drugs, or unless, I know you're mentally safe and you're not a danger to these children, I'm not going to let you see it. Why would you want to put children through that? I mean, it makes no sense. I'm probably never going to understand it. I'm probably never going to wrap my head around why people do that. I have seen people do it. I knew a girl who, because years ago she had slept with somebody's husband, and this new woman, the wife, she had a vendetta against this woman. This woman didn't have any contact with the ex. She had nothing to do with the ex. Next thing she knows, she had CPS knocking on the door. And her kids got taken. Now, I'm not going to say, CPS is just going to walk in and be like, oh, I'm taking your kids. Yes, CPS usually does have a justified reason on why they're taking the kids. But in some cases, it could be CPS is just like, dude, we are tired of these people calling constantly wanting these kids taken, so we just need to figure out a way to, just nip it in the bud so we don't have to deal with it anymore. And the sad part is, and I've heard a lot of it, is, CPS is busy. There are abuse cases out there that CPS is having to deal with. There may be a house that a CPS has had to go to several times, and they know the child's being abused and neglected, but they may not have concrete evidence to prove that that child is being abused and neglected. And then, in the event that they're busy with all these other people, turn around and calling, because they're mad at, the parent of these children, there's nothing going on, then a child that's actually being abused or neglected may slip through the cracks, and then when it comes down to it and that child ends up getting killed, because of the abuse or the neglect or whatever that child's going through, people are wanting to point fingers at CPS, you did this, you didn't protect him and all this stuff. And I'm not saying CPS is perfect. Nobody's perfect. I've said that plenty of times. But you got to stop and think, when you're wasting energy just to try and get somebody's kids taken just because you don't like the way they act, you don't like the way they talk, you don't like who they're dating, whatever the nonsense is, stop and think, how would you feel if somebody came knocking on your door and took your children? How would you feel if your children got put into foster care because CPS took them, and then next thing you know, you're getting told that, your child's being sexually abused by a foster parent, or even worse, you're actually having to bury your child because that foster parent may have, in fact, abused that child to the point that that child died. And also, how would you feel, if you had a family member who you knew they were a bad person, you knew they were abusing and neglecting their child, but instead of calling CPS on them, to keep that child safe, you get told, oh, hey, so-and-so killed their kid. It's because you were wasting all that energy to call CPS on somebody who you didn't like instead of looking for, a situation that you knew was bad and knew needed help. So if you're calling CPS on people just to be vindictive, it's not right, it's very childish, and it's very heartless in my opinion. Whatever beef you have with another human being that's an adult, that's fine. You're entitled to have that beef. But do not put somebody's child through that. Stop and think about what you would feel, like I said, if your child got taken from you, if your child got put in foster care and you found out your child got sexually abused, or think about how you would feel if you were calling CPS on somebody and you had a family member who ended up killing their child because CPS was too busy dealing with your bullshit to go and actually take care of a case that needed to be taken care of. That's all I got to say for the night. Stay strong, keep fighting.